Hello and welcome to MotorInc First. Shumi's gone and ridden a motorcycle, and I know it's a Bajaj. I know it's a Pulsar. I know it's a 125. And I still feel so lost because it could be so many things, like an N or a P, and how many other.
NS.
Oh, NS, I forgot about that. And how many other 125s do they have in that space that it's rubbing shoulders with? All these questions remain unanswered right at the start. So I was hoping you can clear that up.
I will clear your confusion very easily, Karthik. This is not even going to be a long motoring first.
Okay.
Because another week, another Pulsar. This time Bajaj gave us the numbers. There are 15 Pulsars in total.
Are you serious?
Yes.
So they now know.
They now know that there are 15 Pulsars in total. They even made a joke about it.
And just to be clear, that's 15, not 50.
No, 1.5. So far. 2024 October, as we record this, there are 15 Pulsars.
On sale.
If you project upwards, extrapolate based on the number of Pulsars being added, there will be 50 Pulsars also at some point. But what Bajaj have also started reiterating, and I really enjoy it now, is they keep reiterating that India is not a homogeneous country in terms of how we buy motorcycles.
Yeah, of course.
So to us, we see the worldview of, my God, 15 Pulsars, who the heck is buying this nonsense range? But they're saying that's not actually the case. What happens in West Bengal in terms of which Pulsars get sold there is not the same as what happens in Bihar, which is not the same as Jharkhand, which is not the same as Uttar Pradesh, where this story will begin, which is not the same as Haryana, etc., etc. So they're saying, while it looks like too many to you, in each local location, it's not 15 Pulsars that are popular and get confusing people. There's usually 2 or 3. But the cost structures are so carefully calculated for Bajaj / they are so low for Bajaj that they can afford to do this.
Can I just suggest then, why don't they do it instead of NSP and whatever? NSP and N.
NSP, P is more or less retired, and F.
Why don't they do it like this? Bajaj Pulsar 125 WB or Bajaj Pulsar 125 UP. So it's clear who it's meant for.
Correct.
So all of us don't have to get confused, and the buyers who are interested in it know that this one is for me, bespoke.
I'm sure they're taking notes right now.
Because it would really help, right?
Yeah, because I can quite see the Bajaj Pulsar NS125 WB, which is slightly different from the Bajaj Pulsar N125 UP, which is this bike.
Let's go to UP.
Yeah, so this bike is called the Bajaj Pulsar N125. It's brand new, nothing shared with any of the current Pulsars. Also, no comments on whether this particular new platform can grow up or down. No comments on that either. It's made out of Bajaj's Pantnagar plant.
Okay.
And for once, this bike is not going to get rolled out to the whole country in one shot. They're saying it will be available across the country only by January or something.
My bigger concern with Bajaj and these iterations
is, will it be the same by the time it gets to January?
Will it still be around a year later? That's the real concern.
It should be, because it's a nice bike.
Oh,
there are some very odd things in there too. Don't get your hope super high, but to ride, forget the rest, we'll discuss. But to ride, it's a nice bike. Okay. The genesis of these bikes are all in the TVS Raider. The TVS Raider came out as a fun 125 because the Shine hegemony has been going on for too long, the Honda Shine. The Raider broke that hegemony. Like Sholay, it took a couple of years to get going, and then it got going. And now everybody suddenly woke up to saying, hey, that thing is selling really well. That's why the Xtreme 125R, which took the idea of saying, let's build a mini 160. Okay, I think the Hero styling is really, it's quite a piece of work.
Just to set context for those who don't know how this has evolved, 125s were like these slightly more premium commuters. And then with the Raider, what happened was TVS really hit upon this cool idea that 150s and 160s have become really expensive. So instead of that, why don't we give all the coolness of that segment in the 125s? So this becomes the new entry for younger or more, let's say, young at heart buyers who want that coolness of it. So that's where the Raider started. It looked cool. It had a lot of features about it. And then the Xtreme happened.
Yeah.
The Xtreme was after that.
So I call it the A125 segment, the aspirational 125, where you want to get above the basic commuter job. And the basic commuter job, glamour, super splendor, shine, etc., etc. In the Honda range, the SP125 is supposed to be the slightly more premium 125, but the Raider is the one that defines what this segment does.
Yeah.
Right? The only thing with the Raider is, as the competition arrives, it is the smallest machine of all of these machines, which is why I think its premium quotient is going to feel weakened by the rivals. Not that this has ever slowed down the sales of a successful product in India, it just tends to expand the segment, so not worried. So the Xtreme 125R from Hero is meant to be like a mini 160. So the frame is technically the 160R's frame scaled down, etc., etc. But the idea is very much the Raider.
Okay.
I really liked riding the Hero 125R too. It's a very pleasant, sweet, smooth bike. Hero does chassis balance really well, and clad in some weird styling with lots of stuff going on, which is weird to look at. There's somebody in the office who officially calls it the cockroach.
Are you serious?
No, once he labeled it, and to me the term itself is not important. The idea is, once he labeled it the cockroach, wherever I go I see one. They're everywhere, and it is a popular motorcycle for Hero, as it turns out, because the DRL configuration is pretty specific, and you'll notice it.
Okay.
Right?
I was going to get into it. Why cockroach, man?
It's just a label, but once that label arrived, I can see it everywhere now, right?
Okay.
And in the same vein, the N125 is the same Raider competitor, but again, it is done from zero again. Now, what Bajaj said is they went after refinement, nailed it. It's a very smooth motorcycle, and it is louder at peak revs, but it is not any less smooth at peak revs, which is really nice about it. I've ridden this motorcycle, for your reference, at the Bajaj event, the media preview, maybe 50 kilometers. But then it came to the studio for filming, and we put another 100-ish kilometers, I'm going to say. So we put 160 kilometers on this bike. It is a very smooth motorcycle. I haven't ridden
two separate motorcycles?
Yeah, two motorcycles.
So you have two different data sets?
Two different data sets. 50 on one, 100 on the other. Both smooth. I haven't ridden the Raider in a while. I remember it as being smooth. I remember it as being fun, but I no longer have a memory of whether it is smoother or not. I don't remember that being vibey. This is smooth for sure. Handling, it's clean, and Bajaj said we wanted to make it really light, and they referenced one of my favorite Pulsars, the 135 LS.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a really lightweight motorcycle. The only motorcycle that is physically lighter than the N125 on the market today is the Raider, which is by 2 or 3 kilos. Everything else is heavier. Hero did the thing by saying single channel ABS will give as an option if you want, so that legally they're not required to do it in the 125, but there's the single channel ABS option. And this bike doesn't do that, so it doesn't have single channel ABS on offer. But frame is brand new. And they're saying the frame is one of the reasons why it's so light. So for example, versus the NS125, it loses 8 kilos, 7 kilos, something like that. So it's a significant drawdown in weight. And if you see how they built this frame, it's actually quite interesting. The engine is mounted diamond style, but where all the frames are now splitting the engine hangers into two, it's a single engine hanger that comes and cradles the engine from the bottom. You can see how they've saved weight in all of these
From
things.
the bottom?
Yeah, so the engine's like this, the frame comes down and grabs it like that.
Okay.
It doesn't close. It's
understood.
to the bottom. Swing arm is also, I think, 3 kilos lighter than the equivalent NS125 swing arm. Engine is lighter. Engine is also brand new. And it makes 12 PS. It makes 11 Newton meters of torque, which puts it roughly at the top of the segment in terms of performance output. So between the lightweight performance output, you're expecting to have a motorcycle that feels peppy. It is, but after a fashion. Okay, so when I rode it, I kept feeling like it's not going, oh, now it's going. And then in the next gear, it's not going, oh, now it's going. So I came back to Bajaj, and Bajaj hadn't shown the performance curves, the power curves to anybody. So I said, can I see the power curves? He said, yeah, but you can't take a photo, you can see it. Okay. And it's a flat curve, it's a high curve, but there is a step like that. Okay, so if you stay in the same gear and accelerate, it accelerates reasonably well. But there is a big step in terms of feeling, and after the step it accelerates even better. So once you get the taste of that, then suddenly the first part of the step doesn't feel like it's important enough, right? Okay. So if I were to put numbers to it and compare it to a Xtreme 125, I'm not convinced that the N125 will come out feeling slower. But the initial acceleration will feel slower than the N125 acceleration just a little bit later. So you constantly want to shift down and access that part of the torque again.
Okay.
And it's crazy because It's a small bike. It has a reasonably flat torque curve, and therefore the step that we're talking about in real world terms is a very small step.
I was
But
just
it
going to
makes
say.
but it makes enough of a difference for me to know that staying above this gives me something and staying below this doesn't give me a feeling.
Any idea of where that step is?
Halfway, exactly halfway.
Oh, it's halfway.
Yeah, so this bike I think peaks out at 8,000 and 9,000 RPM. So this is looking at 4.5, 5,000 RPM as the switch point. And even when we were taking riding shots today with the car, every time the car would accelerate, if he was doing it gently, I could just stay in the same gear and roll the throttle on. But if I can see him flooring it, you have to go down 1 or 2 gears and access that part of the rev range to do it. So it's just a contrast between the bottom of the same revs and the high revs. Although I don't think this bike is a slow bike by the standards of this segment.
Doesn't sound like a slow bike.
No, it is. And then Bajaj showed this bike at the go-kart track in Pune. And the go-kart track, well, we had fun for sure. But what came to me was stable, extremely lightweight, but grippy enough. So you can push quite a bit and feel quite confident about it, which is part of the agenda of this motorcycle. So overall, as a package, suspension works really well. So on bad roads, it'll absorb a lot. And I think since the N250 first came out, Bajaj has been doing some very good suspension setups. I think Hero does it better most of the time, but Bajaj is very close. And I'm very happy to see 2 Indian manufacturers who can routinely nail suspension. Where, for example, in contrast, Royal Enfield nailed Himalayan, but they screwed up the Hunter, they screwed up the Shotgun, they screwed up the Super Meteor, and they screwed up the Gorilla. Gorilla also.
Himalayan is the only exception, actually.
Right? So we know
Classic.
that. Yeah, so classic Himalayan on the and Bullet, therefore. In Royal Enfield, 3 good suspension setups, but the rest of them, whereas Bajaj does a lot of good suspension setups if you think about their current range. And Hero seems to never make a mistake with suspension, which is to me excellent news. The N125, frankly, is impressive. Okay, you know the road that we ride the most. On that road, there are lots of small ripples, both in concrete and in tarmac. Mumbai is amazing. And through all of that, you can see that suspension taking away most of the chatter from your usual, that little chassis movement, it just goes away. And then when you get bigger hits, it is taking most of it out, which for a budget suspension like this is amazing. How budget? So budget that this bike is wearing pajamas, which I will explain in a minute, right? But fundamentally, the worst part about this bike on comfort is actually the seat.
Okay.
The seating position is very nice. But the seat and they've done a stepped seat, but without the step becoming so large that it looks like a 2-piece seat, or it creates an inconvenience for people, because sometimes people climbing onto the step, look at the Hero Xtreme 160R as the most egregious example. It's such a fat pillion seat. Climbing onto that seat is definitely going to be a challenge. It's not going to be with this bike, but it's a sloping seat. It slopes forward, and it's a convex seat. So when you sit, the middle part of the seat is the highest and the edges are the lowest. So when you're standing and you want to put your feet down, a convex seat can give you a small advantage, but this is not a tall bike anyway. But when you're riding, that causes pain. And because it's sloped forward, you can't sit wherever you feel like. You sit where the N125 tells you to sit, and it's quite painful that way. If I were buying this bike, I would be wanting to alter the seat. And the more I see these kind of machines, this is the kind of situation that is on the Himalayan, it's on the Gorilla, it's on the N125. It used to be on the old Multistrada. And I'm increasingly thinking, is the designers who are doing these weird things. And in the Multistrada's case, at least, I have a 2-generation example where the 2nd-generation seat is significantly less sloped. It immediately makes that bike better. So I have a feeling that the designers are causing these slopes in the seat because they need to make it look a certain way, and it just doesn't work for comfort. The designers are also why this bike is wearing pajamas, which I will explain in a minute. From the front, you will see the headlight. It's a nice and bright headlight. Super bright? No, bright enough. It reminded me strongly of the Honda X-Blade. And I was surprised nobody else mentioned the X-Blade look to it. But if you think it looks like an X-Blade, leave us a comment. But it's a skinny looking motorcycle. It has a slightly forced bodywork in terms of I need to look like a Pulsar. It's covered in graphics, which are all these dotted graphics. And there's one version of this. You're seeing the purple one because that's the one we have been riding. There is the fluo green one. And in the documentation is a reference to Cyberpunk.
Oh, really?
And if you Google Cyberpunk 2077, you'll find the game. I mean, you guys will know this game, I found it. Cyberpunk 2077 has the same fluorescent green and purple details that this bike has, it's literally 1-to-1.
Okay.
So it's supposed to be like a youthful youngster's bike, so, which a college student looking for an aspirational 125. So if you look for a A125, you can buy an N125 is the game of this bike. And if you like the styling, personally, I think it's okay. If you like the styling, I think they've put together a nice, persuasive bike. Quality issues with Bajaj are always a question mark. They have been making very good bikes in the last 2 or 3 years in terms of quality. I would be very surprised to see that N125s have major quality issues. It felt together, it felt mechanically sorted, nothing felt loose or any other way. And therefore, the only thing left to discuss is the Pajamas.
No, wait. Before you move forward, and
The
I
Pajamas.
want to discuss that part, but in terms of the personality of riding, you've said that you enjoyed it, it felt peppy, the suspension is good, but the word you used for it was nice.
Yeah, it's not an exciting bike.
No, not exciting, but is it like there are 125s that are fun, right?
No,
And
so-
like you said, the 135 LS was like
No,
something
so
you remember.
That is the thing. It is very much a commuter which is being spruced up a little bit rather than anything else. It's not trying to be a very, very exciting. So somebody asked this question in the comments. Actually, that is a very good reference point. So KTM Duke 125 as a reference point, not as a motorcycle, versus the N125. No, not from the same planet.
Correct.
Right? The KTM 125 is a pretty serious, sporty machine.
That's liquid cooled as well, 4 valves, all of that.
15 bhp, right? This is only 12. But this is very much a commuter. But with a commuter with a flavor of sport, with a flavor of slight premium, with a flavor of premium from the sense of step seat and bodywork and graphics, etc. But fundamentally, it's comfortable, it brakes well, etc., etc., etc. So I think they've done this very much keeping the Raider in mind, which is exactly the same kind of bike. Can you call the Raider super exciting to ride? No, you'll have fun on it.
No, also what I remember of the Raider actually is that it had great torque at low revs. It just made it easy to ride, is what I
Same.
remember.
Same. It's just that the N125 has a step up. So if the step wasn't there, if it was a little bit more linear, you wouldn't feel the need to rev it out. But I know that I am passing something and I can pass that thing quicker if I just downshift once and go into the sweeter part. That's all.
Okay.
It's not like you won't pass it. It's not slow.
Okay.
But I know I can do. You remember when the old R6s came out, the 15,000 Redline R? Everybody said it makes no torque under 7. Remember what happened in the first time we rode it?
Yeah.
There was torque under 7. Above 7 was so much more torque that from 0 to 7 it felt like, hey, it wasn't doing anything. It was passing things.
Yeah. But it was nuts after that.
But once it crossed 7, it became such a nicer flavor of nuts that you say, who wants to remain under 7? It's that, at a very small scale.
Okay.
So you can pass traffic very peacefully in top gear without shifting if you feel like it. It's a flexible motorcycle. I know that if you make 2 down changes, get past 7,000 RPM or something, it feels better.
Okay. And in terms of, because of the Raider, and the Raider was the one that kind of made this playbook. It was loaded with equipment. So what's the status here?
I think that was a gambit. And I don't think that the TFT screened Raider is the larger selling Raider. I think it's the more visible Raider. It's the more marketed Raider, but I don't think that's the sales leader. And in the same way, you've got a Bluetooth model and a non-Bluetooth model.
Okay.
The Bluetooth model has the slightly wider tires. The non-Bluetooth model has the slightly narrower tires.
They have different size tires.
Yeah.
Front and rear?
It's clear cost cutting. No, I think rear only, not front.
Okay.
Rear. And similarly, the Bluetooth model has start-stop and integrated starter generator, whereas the base model has normal starting, normal start.
Okay. And disc brake is, front disc brake is standard?
Is standard on both.
Okay.
That's not a difference. So that is the thing. It is a built to a cost. It will first go to markets where they know that this will work, which is markets like Uttar Pradesh, for example, are their primary and initial markets. It will come to the rest of the country like that. And they're saying themselves only, there are markets that favor the NS125. There's no reason why the N125 will change those preferences. There are places where bikes like the N125 work, which they're not able to address until now, which is where they think these things will be successful. And Bajaj is very, very adamant on this idea.
I'm really sorry. This is which 125?
N125.
This is the N. And they do have an NS?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
You're lucky they don't have a P125.
So they don't have a P.
Or a F125.
In between when you were talking,
What I'd like to see is an AS125.
That's long pending, huh? In between, I honestly, like, for 30 seconds or so, I was just in my head, I was just scrambling, like, which one was this? When we spoke about the frames, like, did I misquote about the
New
frame?
125, okay?
New 120. No,
N125. New 125 is what we are discussing today.
you said NS.
NS is
Achha, NS is the other one.
NS pre-exists.
Sorry. Okay. Okay. Moving on.
Okay?
Okay. So the question I have.
Naked Sports is the old one. New 125 is this one, N125.
And they're unrelated entirely.
As far as I can tell, yes, because they're saying everything on this bike is done from zero. We have not borrowed anything from existing platforms. It seems to be a lot of work, but that's what they're saying.
And are the prices very different between the two?
I haven't checked the NS prices, but for you guys, I'll put up a chart which has all the prices included. This bike is, again, the Raider is the reference point, not the NS. Versus the Raider, this bike is 2,000-3,000 rupees cheaper. The top version is, I think, a little bit more, maybe 4,000-5,000 rupees cheaper than the Raider's top version.
Okay. No, because generally this is something that people have often said, right? They walk into a Bajaj showroom and they leave confused and not having had made a
Bajaj
purchase.
is saying that this is your perception, this is not actually the case. He's saying if I put an NS125 in the UP showroom, it will not confuse anybody because they're coming to buy the N125. The NS has nothing to do with them. And vice versa, don't quote me on the exact locations, but if you go to Kerala and park the N125, they're coming to buy the NS125. They will not even look at the N125. It is that clear, this country. I've actually seen the data.
Guys, I'm feeling like you now. I feel like I wish I could hit pause on this video and Google search the images for the NS and the N125 and see them side by side.
The NS looks like the NS.
Okay.
You remember the NS200?
Yeah.
The NS125 looks like that.
Looks exactly like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It almost weighs exactly the same also.
Okay. Okay. And coming to this one now, the N125. The design, the headlamp, definitely distinctive. But from the rear, did you think it reminded you of the 135?
No.
No?
No. I did.
Okay. That was my one feeling that immediately reminded me of maybe I'm just confusing it. But it felt that way. So that's.
Did you think that the rear looked like the Pulsar 135 LS? Leave us a comment.
And the second thing was, the only thing that I have heard from him about this
Here we go.
N125 is, look, it has pajamas. Like, that's the only.
You know how it started?
The only reason I went and saw the bike up close was to see what is this pajama business.
No, so you know how it started. I was at the press conference, at the briefing before we took the motorcycles for a spin, and I was looking at those things, the things I'm going to put a picture of, these things, and I didn't know what to call them. And in my head, the word that popped up was pajamas. And what I actually asked them is, sorry, but what is the official term for these pajamas? And first they burst out laughing. And then they said, MotorInc First, we're going to call them pajamas only. I was like, well, thank you for the idea, right? If you hadn't said it, I would have said...
Now we don't have an option.
I would have said folk sleeves, but you said, will you use it? So he said, sure, why not, right? And the official word is folk sleeves.
Folk sleeves.
Yes. Okay. Now, what it reminds me again and again and again in this country is that a lot of people who work with motorcycles and on motorcycles don't ride motorcycles enough. Because anybody who's done motorcycle design for any length of time should tell you that fakery on a motorcycle, it never works. So what is this? This pajama thing, the folk sleeves, to put a fine point on it, is to cover 30 mm telescopic forks.
Yeah.
30 mm is about that much in thickness, so it doesn't look great. So we'll put pajamas on it, right? And the idea is youngsters want a motorcycle that looks more bulky than they can afford right now, so let's give them this visual thing. And to me, that's two problems. One, I don't know why a youngster shouldn't be able to flaunt what he can afford. Why does he have to flaunt something that he cannot? And two, you've created a functional defect. So I asked, I said, okay, so if my fork seals start leaking, how would I know? So they told me, it's not fully covered. There is a gap. And through the gap, you'll be able to see the leakage.
From the inside?
Yeah. Where is the gap? It's between the lower and the upper triple clamp, where if a leak shows up in that place...
What?
Yeah. Then bottom is fully covered. You can't see anything of the bottom. You can't see the travel at all.
No. Then actually the only way you'll know you have a fork seal leak is if the leak dribbles down the leg all the way down. That's the only way. Otherwise, there's no chance.
Or it shows up in where the gap is.
Up there.
If it shows up where the gap is, your fork has been destroyed like kilometers and kilometers ago.
There'll be plenty other signs.
Yeah. So the entire travel of this motorcycle is completely covered in the pajamas, in the fork sleeve. I'm so sorry. In the fork sleeve, you have no way to see whether it is working or not working. Apparently, the mechanics will be trained to deal with this stuff. And to me, honestly, the whole thing is just nonsense.
I agree 100%, but Shumi, you're forgetting biking is all about pretenses, yeah? You need big muscles to ride bikes. You need bikes that look big. Only they go fast. So this is all part and parcel. This is the choices that you are making, and therefore we're getting products like this. So think.
This is a 124 kilo bike, which means a reasonably strong person should be able to deadlift this thing, right?
And this is an argument. You know how many times it has happened? Sorry, man. I know. But this is also always, it's a reflection of what we are doing and what we are choosing. And we've been reviewing bikes for so long. People will tell us, oh, that bike is sporty. It looks so small. What does that have to do with the bike being sporty?
Yeah.
You want a fun to ride experience, then it's about how it rides, not how it looks.
Correct.
The R15 was the best example, the first gen with the skinny tires, that it's too skinny.
Superb. And similarly, if you notice, I'm bringing the conversation very, very consciously back to N125. On the grab rail, you're going to see a square hole in the middle of the grab rail at the back. So the grab rail is sort of like a boomerang around it. Okay? And there's a hole right in the middle. So I was being snarky, I'll admit, and I said, weight loss. And they said, yes.
No way.
Yeah. And I said, well, why didn't you make 2 holes? So he said, how would 2 holes have helped? I said, 2 holes is a place to mount luggage with. 1 hole is just 1 hole.
They could have done it down the side as well then.
No, so it's like this. And the designer said, very, very sweetly, he said, look, I actually wanted it to be 1 unit without the hole at all. And it would just look a little bit like a spoiler, sort of like a grab rail, and it would do both the jobs. Weight loss. So they made 1 hole, like in the geometric center of it. And I was like, but if you had put 2, I could have mounted a bag to this. I had 2 separate bungee points. I'd get so much more security for the bag out of the 2 hole. So in terms of design, this bike has these weirdnesses. But it really is a nice bike to ride. So if I were to be buying this motorcycle, I would have to learn to ignore the pajamas. I would have to find a way to find comfort with this seat, especially over longer distances. Shorter distance, I think fundamentally okay. They have used stiff foam. Okay. So once this seat settles down, it will stay in the shape it settles down into. It's not one of those sink into it. I love that. That's nice. You sit in a good riding position. I like that. The meters are now familiar. Bajaj uses the same meters for everything. So 1 more set of familiar looking meters have arrived. But fundamentally under all that is a good look, is a bike that is good to ride.
Awesome.
And when you sit on the bike and ride, you can't see the pajamas. You can't see the hole in the spoiler. You're okay.
That's an upside for sure. And talking about the designers and the people working in the automotive space, you know, we found it time and again. And one shocking story I got was at one of the events. People who are working at car manufacturers, sometimes, if not often, who may be working on software and stuff like that, they're developing features for the cars that we end up using, driving, living with. Some of them don't even know how to drive.
Yeah.
They don't know how to start a car and actually drive it.
I know Karthik's genuinely upset about it. I am just like figures.
No, if you're going to do this, if this is your livelihood, the least you can do is learn that. And there are enough ways to do that.
Yeah.
And as I think for motorcyclists who are working in this line, that's practically blasphemy if you're not doing that.
But you're calling them motorcyclists working in this line, right?
Okay, not motorcyclists. You should be motorcyclists.
Yeah, people working in this line should ideally be motorcyclists. It'll give you a better sensitivity to what works, what doesn't, what conventional expectations from motorcycles are from riders. It just gives you a natively better sense of it. It's like I'm telling you, when I saw the spoiler for the first time and I saw the 1 hole in the middle of the spoiler, the grab rail, my first reaction was, why didn't you make 2? And in my head, I am imagining the G hook of my Kriega bag going through it. And I'd say I'd mount it like this and I'd immediately solve one thing.
Correct.
That was my first thought.
In fact, that seat thing that Shumi brought up, anybody who's ridden bikes will tell you that that is immediately a bad idea. because of two things. One, that curved shape means there's going to be a pressure point in a very uncomfortable spot. Second, if it's sloped that much and if it's not a properly sport bike where you're already always tucked in,
Correct.
it just kills options of sitting comfortably, which is why you'll find
Yeah,
bikes with that
and
flattish seat.
Yeah, and kills that option for what? So that when the bike is parked and in your brochures and in the studio shots that you'll send out to the media, the lines are right.
On the brochures, you edit it in, nah? No problem. I mean, that's an easy fix.
Yeah, you do what Ultraviolet did. No, remember the first one? The first ever ride that we did, there was one seat for riding and one seat for photography. They were prototyping and they said, look, this prototype you can sit on, and that prototype is actually visually the correct one. So you film that, but you sit on this one.
Yeah. Anyways, okay. Coming back. So fundamentally a good motorcycle. It's, like you said, good to use as in practicality wise because of the suspension. Or should I do a summary?
Why not?
Or should we move on?
Let's
I mean, is
do
there
the
something
summary.
else you need to
Yeah,
cover?
no, we're done.
No?
No.
Okay. This is the Bajaj Pulsar N125.
Thank you very much. That was a very good
I got
quick
that
summary.
right. I think I deserve a 10 on 10 just for that. And the other bit is that it doesn't share anything as far as Shumi knows with any of the other 125s. And I think that's a win for the N125 as well. It's a motorcycle that has a headlamp that reminds him of the Honda X-Blade.
Yes.
And I think it does look quite a bit like that. It's a motorcycle in terms of personality that's closest to the 135 LS. It was a light, fun to ride motorcycle and was really fizzy. Whereas in the case of the 125, the N125, it strikes a slightly different balance. It can be fun, and that's when you rev it up. But if you're not, it's a very good motorcycle to use calmly, conveniently. And the thing that impressed Shumi about it was the refinement, and that's something that stays with you even when you rev it up. And this 125cc engine, aside from the performance angle, does get a little bit louder as you rev it up, but it's not something that's bothersome. Does it sound sporty? Or it's just there? Okay, fine. We'll leave it at that. And talking about sporty, it also gets different tire sizes. There's the high spec variant, which costs about 8,000 rupees more, which gets a wider tire at the rear. It also gets Bluetooth connectivity. And well, the lower end model is, of course, meant to be affordable, and that's what the idea is. Aside from that, the design itself is derived from punk rock.
No, cyberpunk.
Sorry, cyberpunk, not punk rock, cyberpunk. And so the color themes are borrowed directly from there. And the strange bit in the design, coming back to it, are those fork sleeves / you know what it is. Which
I wanted to ask you this. What do they remind you the most of? I am stuck between culottes, dungarees, cutoffs, extra long Daisy Dukes.
What are Daisy Dukes, dude?
You look it up, okay, they know. And pajamas.
Okay. So whatever that may be, that's the strangest part of the design. There is a slight bit of inconvenience in the design aspect, and that comes down to the rider's seat. It's a little too tipped forward, and it drops off at the edges like that, which makes it convenient when you're at standstill to get your feet down, but it's already a motorcycle with a low seat height, so that wasn't absolutely necessary. And the trade-off is for rider comfort because of the shape and the angle, which means longer distances, something could have been done better here. And the upside in this entire seat conversation is the foam for the seat is on the firmer side. So once it settles down, it will be fine. Prices wise, it's about 3 to 4,000 rupees cheaper than the TVS Raider. And that's the bike that got this category going. And as Shumi is calling it, the A125 category, which is the aspirational 125 category. And so in that vein, it does get Bluetooth like we spoke, and the instrument cluster is digital, and that's a familiar unit that we've seen on other Bajajes before. And this is specifically derived from the needs of the UP market, interestingly. And Bajaj is saying all these various varieties of Pulsars that you see are created to cater to needs of different regions within India. And those are large enough markets in their own right. And so they're going about creating these various options.
Yeah.
Did I miss anything?
No. I can add some numbers. The seat height is only 795.
Okay.
So in theory, the standover angle for a bike like this wouldn't make a difference. Significant. It just won't matter.
Okay. Anything on the fuel efficiency?
they're saying 55-ish in the city, 65-ish out on the highway. So mixed use, 60 kmpl is what you should expect, which again is roughly what this class is. If I remember correctly, I'll put the exact number up. Hero Xtreme 125R claimed 63 kilometers per liter ARA or something like that. So they're all in this ballpark.
Okay, super. So another Pulsar?
Another week.
Is there another Pulsar coming our way as well?
Oh, you can bet that there is another one coming.
They already have the NS. Oh, P125. Correct. That's the one that's missing.
All of the P is missing.
All
of the P's are missing. I'm so sorry for that.
All of the P's are missing?
Yeah, the P150 got retired and then brought back as the N150, remember?
Sorry.
The P150, it was the...
No, I'm just...
One sec. Let me try and clarify this for him because I think it'll be worth the effort. Nothing for the entertainment, right? The P150, if you remember, is the motorcycle that came here that looked very much like the Discover.
Yeah, oh yeah, okay.
See?
Yeah.
And then that got retired. And
it got retired.
Then it got reskinned with the N160 skin. If you remember, the N160 is the bike we went to ride together.
Yeah, okay.
We took 2 Pulsars together. That was the N160. That skin was put on the P150 and it was reintroduced as the N150.
I'm just going to say, okay, I get it.
So N150, N160, NS160, NS200, N250, F250 apparently you can order from a dealership. It's not officially on the Bajaj website, but if you go to a dealer and say, can you please give me a F250? They will make arrangements to get you an F250. Then there is the 220F, which is not the F250.
Stop. Just stop.
Then below that,
I don't think this is helping anybody.
N125, NS1.
I'm sure people at Bajaj are going to go back and say, do we still make the 220F?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, no, they can't stop.
It's being made.
Of course, they cannot stop making the 220F.
Hadn't they stopped it?
Yes. The 220F is a legend, but today it is also like the leaky tap where whatever washers you put, some drops of water will come through. So they stopped it. And then the dealers got on Bajaj's case saying, yeah, okay, you stopped it and all of that. But there's customers coming in every day and asking, saying, can I get a 220F?
Shucks, I genuinely lost track. I thought the 220F was done.
So it was brought back.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, then.
So it was retired, then it was brought back. And I think now the plan is when I retire, so will the 220F.
It's got a long way to go.
About 40 more years, I think.
It's like Rasputin, you can't kill it.
You know what you should consider yourself lucky? Especially the people who become cynical about the Pulsar brand. You're lucky that there is only one 220F. There is no 175F, 150F, 125F, 100F.
Done. I know which Pulsar is coming next. I know which Pulsar is coming next. 100%. 100%. Next year, you see. Okay. I think on this note, we have more than one Pulsar a week next year. 2025 is going to be interesting.
Yeah. No, but see, if you okay, we joke about the Bajaj strategy a lot, but increasingly, I think they're on to something. Okay? Because they've been, Rajiv Bajaj, I think he shouldn't say some of the things he does. Like, for example, I want to rob the bank and the bank is Siddharth Lal. But if you look at Royal Enfield versus Bajaj right now, Royal Enfield built walls and they're inside their walls saying we are retro. And Bajaj is saying we have capability and we are free to do whatever we want. There's nothing stopping Bajaj from doing a retro if they truly believe that this would be a worthwhile product. Right?
You know, there's another brand that does exactly what Bajaj does.
Who?
Think.
Who?
Think.
Who?
Four-wheelers. Chal, I'll give you a clue.
Four-wheeler brand? I have no idea who you're talking about anymore.
Go premium. Porsche.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Porsche does the exact same thing. S, ST, STR, this, that, 3.03. They say the same thing. There is a customer with different needs. Yeah. We create something.
Yeah, no, and what I was adding to that is, so on the one side, Bajaj says stuff like we can have 15 Pulsars because in this country, there are 15 places minimum where each of these bikes will be commercially viably sold in decent numbers. But if you look at their premium strategy, they tried the Dominar head-on against the Royal Enfield. Didn't work. They haven't made that mistake again. Yeah. So there is the NS400Z, which is sitting practically on top of the Hunter's price. It goes all the way around now to the 390 Adventures, which would come in at 3.5 lakh rupees. And there is a premium Bajaj made product, whatever the brand on the tank is, sitting from here to 325 is my guess for the. They've got a bike at every single price point. They've got adventure tourers in there, fast retro, slow retro, looks like a retro is not a retro. They've got their own products like the Dominar, which I don't know what category to put it in except for maybe retired. Should be by now, but it's not retired. Sorry, if you own a Dominar, I'm sorry. I apologize. But if you look at that strategy versus what Royal Enfield is doing, you take the classic 350 and you build classic, Bullet, Meteor, blah, blah, blah. Now you've got the Interceptor, Continental, Super Meteor, different frame, Shotgun, different frame, back to Bear, slightly different frame. Now the classic 650 will come. So if you look at it, Rajiv keeps making new platforms and trying to work it out. And Siddharth keeps taking one platform and churning more and more and more products out of it. I suspect that in time, one of these two strategies will become much stronger than the other one. Which one do you think will work? Leave us a comment. What?
Nothing.
What are you smiling at?
Nothing. I'm genuinely thinking about the two approaches that they've taken. I think now with Triumph as part of the Bajaj family, the big stride I think has happened.
Yeah,
in
think
terms
about
of
the
spaces they
latitude
wanted
of
to get
Bajaj.
into.
Yeah, think about the latitude of Bajaj, right? Chetak, Bajaj, KTM, Husqvarna, Triumph. That's 5 brands in play right now.
And they've gotten into the meat of it. I think Triumph has really unlocked. And this, I'm saying honestly, after the T4 came, and again, I've not ridden it, but the same first impressions when the Speed 400 came, and I remember just revving it, and I'm like, this is not what I expected. And the T4 immediately, the difference was, we know, and I think I was telling Shumi, I think this is the biggest side swipe at the classic 350, which is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of the most serious threats to that motorcycle.
Yeah. And I think over the years, Bajaj has built the ability. Initially, I think it was a bad thing for them. Now I think it's a strength to iterate really quickly if they feel like it. And sometimes they've iterated so quickly that the customers have gotten lost in the story itself. And if you think about what Bajaj is up to in the last, I'm going to say year and a half, it's not that iterative.
They've calmed things down, yeah.
They're able to do it. They have the ability to do it. But it's not like they're just praying and praying. It feels like it. I can only say this with this confidence because they actually showed me the numbers, which I'm not allowed to share in any way, showing me there is viable volume for each of these Pulsars state by state by state. Just to make the point saying that yes, it is not a foolish thing that we just make like 15 Pulsars and life is good.
I haven't seen those numbers, but the area that gives me that sense that Bajaj is moving forward, because every once in a while I'll hop onto some of the bikes here, is one, that suspension, which we've been seeing over the last couple of years. And we've said this, that it's not easy to get good suspension.
Yeah.
And on a motorcycle, all the more so.
Yeah.
And that's something that Bajaj is getting right more and more often. And if they had one weakness, which they were regularly trashed for, was quality. And you can see with every bike that there is a better and better experience happening.
Yeah.
And to the point where you're now like looking at it and saying, hey, this is well finished on the whole, right?
Yeah. No, and again, they can finish well when they want to. They don't always do it. I wouldn't say that this N125 is amazingly well finished. No, it's not. I know that they can do it because the Triumph says when you put them in a corner and say, no, you finish this well, they finish it well. It's not rocket science.
Correct.
So the ability is there. Now they can use the ability as a tool. What motorcycle requires that level of finish? It can be brought to bear on it. What motorcycle does not.
Nice, interesting time, for sure.
Yeah. So I think finally there is a working strategy to defeat the dominance of Royal Enfield. Again, it's not going to happen overnight. Nothing does. We'll see how this works out. But it looks like Rajiv was not just talking out of his hat about robbing the bank and all of that.
Not the 3-letter word I was expecting.
Yeah.
On that note, anything more to add?
Another week, another Pulsar. We'll see you soon.
Thank you so much for watching. If you have any more questions, do let us know in the comments and we'll do our best to get back to you. Thanks so much.